Yo, Zenith Nation, welcome back to Catch The Zenith, the podcast where I document my journey to get better in life and business. Today we've got another episode of Zenith Reflections where I comment on some of my most interesting posts from the week on X. And by the way, if you're new here to this podcast, I'm Nicola, I'm an entrepreneur and master student, so let's rock and roll in. So first post I wanted to discuss is how to outcompete 99% of people. Number one, first, deliver one day earlier, plus an extra thing or a bonus when you should deliver a project. And second, come 30 minutes earlier to work and leave 30 minutes later. So let me quickly explain that and also the context. So I would say this works particularly well in a corporate setting if you're working in a corporate job. I think also I would argue even in a startup and if you are an entrepreneur as well. But let's do it right now for the corporate world because I did 2 internships and this worked really, really well. First, I said you should deliver one day earlier than promised and a little extra thing. So I'll give you a precise example. I had many different projects in my last internship when I was in the USA in Salt Lake City, working for a train manufacturer. And one thing I did over and over again is we had a deadline. Let's say my first project, the deadline was I think on Friday or Thursday. I think it was Friday. And what I've done is we had this deadline in place. I already delivered the entire deliverable, so the pitch deck or a PDF, basically a PowerPoint presentation, already a day before. On Thursday, I sent my supervisor, the head of a department. I sent him already all what I did, the entire PDF, the deliverable, plus I did some extra research on a topic he didn't ask for, but I also delivered that. This is the bonus. And now think of this person then, like the supervisor, he's like there, oh, this guy delivered more than promised, plus earlier than actually promised, you know. And I think especially if someone has the ambition to climb up the corporate ladder, this is a great tactic which you can apply. At least it worked in my case pretty well. And I also applied it in different contexts. I remember in the past when I had an interview for a job, and what I've done is I prepared everything, my CV, like recommendation letters, certificates, and also a specific PowerPoint presentation for that company. Within that presentation, I present myself, my education, my work experience, but also specific to that company, projects I want to work on or things I wanted to tackle to improve that company, for instance. And I did that already a few times and it worked pretty well. And what I'm doing there is I'm already delivering the night before all the material. I said, hey guys, really looking forward to the first interview. Here is all the material you can also click here on this Google Drive link if you want to have, if you wanted to download it or directly in the attachment, you have it as well. And then on the day itself, when you have the interview, you have then also the bonus already there. The PowerPoint in my case was the bonus because nobody's doing that or very few people. This is basically what I experienced so far. I think nobody told me that they have seen that so far. So it's a pretty, let's say, simple thing to do because you know what to do, but obviously it's hard because you need to spend a little bit more time than other people. But I think that's a great tactic. So deliver earlier than promised. So if the deadline is Friday, deliver on Thursday and deliver a small extra thing. And in a corporate setting, I just outlined how that can look like, but also in a entrepreneurship or business setting, if you are the business owner, I did that also with clients. Like I said, I for instance, hey, until Friday, I will deliver this and this. I already delivered that way earlier, plus more than promised. And people are always like stoked when they get more than promised and earlier. And the second thing, what I said, or the tactic is come 30 minutes earlier to work and leave 30 minutes later. I would say, especially in the corporate world, when it comes to who should get the promotion, the person, you could ask yourself, is it the person who always comes exactly when this person should be there, like let's say 8 a.m., 7 a.m., or the person who comes 30 minutes later and leaves in the evening also 30 minutes later, as opposed to the person who leaves precisely at the time when work is done, when the entire work hours are fulfilled. And for me, the question or the answer is pretty obvious. The person who stays longer or comes earlier will get the promotion in most cases. I'm not generalizing here, but the likelihood is way higher. And it's so simple, but nobody does it, or really few people, I would argue. And those two strategies I just outlined, you can get creative and apply them in different settings of life, not only in corporate world, startup, but also if you have a business yourself. And people are always pretty impressed. Yeah. So that's the first one, how to outcompete 99% of people. It's not, and that's the interesting thing. It's not that difficult, you know. It's not rocket science. It's just a little bit more effort. All right, next one. How I improved my English. First, recording podcasts in English. Second, writing newsletters in English. Third, thinking and reflecting in English. Fourth, consuming YouTube videos and podcasts in English. Fifth, talking with people in English. And lastly, reading books in English. So obviously, if you want to become better in English, and this was one of my ambitions, and it still is, because back in 2023, I switched my coaching business I had at that time. I switched entirely from German to English. So this was a whole new ballpark, basically, because I did the same, but now in a different language. And obviously, English was always part of my journey in school. But now really doing business in English is a new challenge. And I thought, how can I, as quickly as possible, learn as much as possible about English, or become literate in English, to speak more fluent. And I thought a lot of exposure perhaps will help, because obviously you can go to English courses, the formal stuff. You can download apps like Duolingo and Bubble, and there are some great applications out there, obviously. And I also work with Bubble actually sometimes. But also I think on the other side, and this is something that is a little bit undervalued, I would say, is like a lot of exposure. And in my case, a great way how to expose myself to the English language is through podcasts or recording podcasts. Or on the other side, like writing newsletters. I have a weekly newsletter I'm sending out every single Sunday about high performance and business, where I obviously write in English. And it helps me to think about my words pretty carefully. And when I don't know a word, I look it up. Oh, that's the German word, and this is the English word. And then I expand my vocabulary. So that's a great way to do it as well. And by the way, if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, it's free down below. The next one, then thinking and reflecting in English. That's a hard one. Like, I used to obviously think and reflect a lot in my head in German, and I still do that to a certain degree, but less than before. I reflect, for instance, when I commute on my motorcycle. I have a conversation with myself in English where I reflect my day, one thing I could do better, one thing I'm proud of. And also I record small podcast episodes to practice a little bit. But it's a great way how to train yourself to think in English, if your ambition is to become good in English. And then another one is obviously consuming YouTube videos and podcasts in English. This is quite an obvious one. But I think it's also powerful because, especially like, I want to become like really good in American English, like also the conversational English that is not taught, let's say, that much in Swiss English education, you know, like the things that you don't learn in a formal setting. And I think YouTube videos and pods are a great way how to do that. Then another one is obviously talking to people in English, having natives around you. I love that. I really enjoyed when I was in the US, because you have all English natives, people around you, and you pick up a new word here and again another word there. So that's powerful as well. And the last one is reading books in English. I have right here, for instance, I show it to you quickly. I'm rereading currently Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life. Great book. And I'm reading it in English. And again, this helps to expand my vocabulary and to become more literate. So that's how I improved my English, or I'm still trying to improve my English, because it's far from let's say, the level I want it to be, because I really want to try to become as fluent and well spoken as literate as a Jordan Peterson, for instance. That's really inspirational. Like, imagine if you have all that vocabulary at your disposal, how precise you can articulate yourself. Next one. That's actually a post which I reposted by Charlie Morgan, an entrepreneur. He said or wrote, "Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day." I will repeat that. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Failure to do so will result in inconsistent hormone and chemical imbalances in your body, which completely decimate your chances of a productive life. Set a bedtime, set a wake time, stick to it. A really powerful one. Because I'll give you an example. When I used to live in the US for the 6 months, I woke up every single night except of maybe of 6 months. I woke up 99.9% every single day at the same time. And it was 4:30 a.m. I woke up and I went to sleep at 8:30 p.m. Because I always wanted to do that. I never did that in the past. I always woke up a little bit later. And it was incredible because you're so much more productive because your body really likes this routine. And I stayed, sometimes I also did it like 6:15 a.m. I woke up and I went to sleep in 10 or 10:15 p.m. That also works great. So I make sure that I get my 8 hours sleep time. And I do this at the precise same bedtimes, precise in most cases bedtimes. And this makes it really easy. And also, I think an important thing to make that a priority is to make it non-negotiable. That, hey, it's like when you meet someone in 5 p.m., you want to be there in 5 p.m. and not in 6 p.m., obviously. So the same way how you treat that commitment, you also treat your bedtimes like that you go to sleep when you intended to sleep. It's hard, I know, because, for instance, I had this last week on Saturday. I had a great party of a great friend of mine. It was a wonderful time with great people, and grateful for that time for sure. And obviously, because it was so a great time, I stayed a little bit longer. I stayed actually quite till 2 a.m., 1:30 a.m. I'm not entirely sure. But obviously, and that is pretty darn late. And this is actually currently one of the things I want to do better right now, to go back to a consistent bedtime, because I did it for a so long period in the past and it really helped me. So that's a great one. And always when I do it, I feel really good, especially for a pretty long time. Like, I remember when I started to do that back in 2023, like really consistent. Like, I started first with 6:15 and a.m. and then 10 p.m. go to sleep. I felt so good, and your body's so adapted to that. And then on the flip side, if I don't do that, it's like you mess up everything. At least this is in my case like that. I feel way better, basically. I'm more productive. All right. Next one. This is a post by Patrick Bet-David, which I reposted. He wrote, "Reading an hour a day is only 4% of your day." Only 4%. But that 4% will put you at the top of your field within 10 years. Find the time. I love that one because I, as a high school kid, and yeah, mainly as a high school kid, I really detested reading. It was not part of my interests, not really passionate about that. But then, interestingly, when I got into uni and college and got really interested in hard work and stuff like that, and self-improvement and high performance, I started to really enjoy reading because I read for the sake of, or I read because I was interested in knowledge. I wanted to learn ideas how to improve my life. And then I had a clear reason why to read. And that made it so much easier, actually very, very enjoyable. Right now I'm reading this book here, 12 Rules for Life. It's a great book. It's a hard read for me, because the English, although it's for other folks, it's maybe not that hard. There are some words that I need to look up, that's for sure. But again, it's such a great activity because I sit there an hour and I'm pretty focused. I do one thing at a time. This translates then into other areas of my lives because I'm more focused, for instance, while working. and I'm more calm. And it's a great natural way of making yourself tired before, if you want to, before sleeping, And it's a great, I think at least in my case, it's a great way how to wind down and to relax, read a little bit, and then to fall asleep properly. That works great. And circling back to what Patrick Bet-David said, like if you put those 4%, or take those 4% and you read, within 10 years you are at the top of your field. I think because part of the reason is knowledge compounds, and if you do that over and over again every single day, you know more and more and more. And I experienced that myself when I started to read my first self-help book. I think it was something like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or maybe another book. And what was interesting is then when I read the second book, I think Atomic Habits or a Peterson book, I could see how they were connected. For instance, in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, the author, writes about being proactive, like instead of reactive, like taking responsibility for your life. And actually, Jordan Peterson, then again, in his book, 12 Rules for Life, talks about a similar thing, like taking full ownership is one of his core messages. And then you see how that overlaps, and you can learn always something new, and you make those connections. So reading, one of the most powerful things to do, I believe. Especially I love reading non-fiction books, and because it's a great way how to really learn a lot of stuff. Next one. This is a post by Nicholas Cole. I don't know who he is, but I like the post. He wrote, "The number of hours you spend consuming should never exceed the number of hours you spend creating." That's also a good one, because what I try to do most of the time is a lot of deep work in the morning, or as long as possible. Ideally, if I can, like 6 hours straight or even longer, just doing one thing, like solving a really hard problem. For instance, when I had my coaching business, I wanted to create a lead magnet. A lead magnet is basically like a smaller product of your main offer. You have your main offer, which you sell, and then you have, like, let's do an example. Like, you have a boxing gym. The main offer is you have classes, weekly classes. But the lead magnet could be you're giving away for free some boxing gloves that you can take at home or put on your keys, and makes the actual offer more interesting. And in my case, I had a similar thing. I had an 8-week program, and the lead magnet was a free 7-day program. And then I created that 7-day program, and I spent a lot of time in the morning working 6, 7, 8, or even 12 hours straight, just working, for instance, on the landing pages, on the curriculum, on preparing everything. And I tried to create stuff instead of, or as opposed to, consuming stuff. And I think the ratio is really important, because if you just consume, you can't really understand what people are saying. Like, let me explain. If you consume a lot about sales, but have never done a sales call, it's pretty hard to contextualize what this person is telling you. However, like, if you have already done 100 sales calls, then I'm pretty sure you know way better how to understand, like, if a person speaks about objections, the nuances, you understand them better. And if a person speaks about, like, hey, you need to make sure to avoid no-shows, like you need to send them a message before the call or multiple messages that they show up. Then during the call, first you need to make sure to get the problem right, that they are aware of their problem they want to solve, and then you show the solution to that. Then they might have some objections and how you overcome them. And if you have done it already, then it's easier for you to take that advice and put it into practice, as opposed to if you're just purely listening and consuming videos about sales. And you can obviously translate what I just explained, this example, on other things as well. I think listening to podcasts is great, but quite frankly, if we would implement everything, we just need to listen 10 minutes and we have already 2 strategies to implement, and that takes a lot of time. But obviously, mental masturbation is a common phenomenon which you see among a lot of people, including myself sometimes. And with mental masturbation, I mean if you watch a podcast about, let's say, health, but you just watch it, but you don't really change your behavior. That is mental masturbation. You consume, but you don't change your behavior. And it feels pretty good because you think, oh, I educated myself. But if you don't change your behavior, this is pretty worthless. And if you think of learning and intelligence as like learning is new condition, different behavior. So like first situation, let's say in a sales call, the prospect says X and you say epsilon, which was a mistake. But the next time, if the person again says X, you say Z. So you have changed your behavior, therefore you have learned. New condition, new behavior. And then intelligence on the flip side is the rate of learning, the speed of learning. How fast can you change your behavior and adapt to new situations? So for instance, and this is all what I learned from Alex Hormozi, imagine somebody would show you a red card and then slap you immediately. And if this person again shows you a red card and you want to slap you, but you don't duck, then you have a pretty low speed, low rate of learning. However, the person who after the first time, like getting slapped, and ducks the next time, has a pretty high intelligence because this person changed fast their behavior. And I think that's a really helpful and practical way of defining learning and intelligence. Now, long story short, circling back to what I initially read, this quote, like consuming should be less than actually should be, consuming should be less than creating, is a really powerful thing. And you can always look at your day and see, okay, after let's say 10 hours you worked, how much did you consume and educated yourself, for instance, and how much did you actually do stuff and created stuff? It depends on the job, obviously. Next one. This is a post which I wrote. Business is about customer problems, not ideas. Why is this important? A lot of people, when they talk about business, they think in terms of ideas. I need to have a good idea. But I think, or this is what I experienced over the past 4 years, fuck the idea, think first about the problem. Why? Because if you don't have a clear customer problem, if people don't have a problem worth solving, you can have the best ideas. You will not able to sell it because it will not solve anything. You need a clear problem, and then you think about the idea or the solution to this problem, but not the other way around. And in my case, with my last business, I talked a lot about my coaching business. Let's talk about another startup which we did at the University of St. Gallen. It was like a project. We wanted to solve the problem that a lot of C-level executives, especially conservative ones, don't know really how to use LinkedIn and build up their personal brand. They have like bad LinkedIn profiles. They are not really good in that, and they are conservative, and they don't know how to do that. Said that, first we needed to validate the problem. And more or less, we did there a good job. I did a lot of mistakes there and learned a lot. But the problem was clear. They don't know how to do that. And then the flip side, the solution was basically, I think it was a 12-week program we offered. Yeah, I think it was 12 weeks, where we basically helped them to come up with their LinkedIn strategy, how to generate or get better employees, how to sell more customers, how to get more media placements, for instance. And we helped them to create a strategy based on their personality and so on. And then we delivered them like the LinkedIn plan, which posts they should create, and actually the templates, how to write a post. And long story short, first problem was important, and then the solution, then the actual idea, but not the other way around. And by the way, the bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the money you make. At least that's what I think is true. Next one. This is a quote by a guy called Blue. Yeah, just Blue. I reposted that. He wrote, no pornography, plus avoid sugar, plus drink water, plus hit the gym, plus party less, plus avoid drama, plus dress well, plus make money, plus smell nice, plus talk less equals a magic pill to life. Yeah, I like that one because it really helps you to focus on few fundamental things that can really improve your life. It first starts with no porn. Obviously, this is something I stopped watching porn a long time ago, maybe 4 or 5 years. And so basically no masturbation, no watching porn. This was something that definitely improved my life, among other things I did, like a healthy diet and so on. So that's a great one. And nowadays, a lot of people out there are pretty strongly addicted to porn. And I think this has a lot of benefits to stop watching porn, stop masturbation. I'm not claiming this is good for everybody. This is just what's worked for me. Really important disclaimer here. This is what worked for me. Do whatever you want if it works for you. So no porn, the first one. Second one was avoid sugar. Great one as well. Like especially, if you don't want to have brain fog and stuff like that, it's a great one. Just eat unprocessed food. Sweet potatoes, eggs, chicken, broccoli, and you're all good, The next one, drink water. I have a principle that I'm only allowed to drink still water, tea, and protein shakes. Alcohol, the last time I drank alcohol was in 2023 on a wedding. And before that also a really long time not. So I'm almost never drinking alcohol. And I'm considering quitting it entirely. I really have no interest currently. Maybe one day at a party. But I think I should maybe quit entirely and never do that again. Life is way better because, alcohol is just, it never brings out the good things in people, I would argue. Then, maybe we can talk about that another time, but definitely something that helped me not drinking alcohol at all. I'm practicing that. I'm feeling great. Instead of that, drinking water, protein shakes, and good tea. Then the next one, hit the gym. Also, I'm working out 5 times a week. Helped me a lot. Party less also. Party really, really rarely. Except like last week, Saturday. Since a long time, I had like a real, let's say, going out or the week. No, actually, that was kind of interesting. I had a pretty long time, nothing at all. And then 2 weeks in a row, we had a cool evening. It was not party, more like sitting in a bar and speaking with each other. Or a friend of mine also had a good celebration at his apartment. But it was less like party. It was more like sitting and speaking, and which then went a little bit into the morning hours, which is not ideally for sleeping, but it was also nice. But it was not party, and I didn't drink alcohol. I just had great conversation. I think that's still okay. But when it comes to party less, I do that for many, many years. Almost no party, pretty rarely, apart except like when there a wedding or really something big. Because, I found things like work or the family way more enjoyable or way more beautiful stuff to do than drinking too much. And so that's just what happened in my life. Avoid drama. That's also a great one, like avoiding drama people. And with drama people, I think of people that somehow attract always problems. And I don't want to spend time with people where you have the feeling they always attract problems and struggles and not really productive people, more destructive people actually. Dress well, that's also a good one. Not always dress perfectly, but today I have actually a shirt on, so that I can check off this check box. Make money, hopefully make money. Not at that point yet, but I have made some money in the past, definitely. Smell nice, also a good one. And talk less. Listen more and ask questions. That's also a good one. So, and long story short, this guy Blue says this is the magic pill to life. Long story short, I think it's just a cool post, like helping you to know what to focus on, how maybe improve your life, or maybe to improve your life. All right, long story short, next one. This is a post by Dear Self. Most successful people I've met are not that smart. They just move fast, take risks, and work a lot. Trust me. And building up on that post, I commented, The ultra successful don't obsess about the fancy stuff. Instead, they do the basics more and better. They are not keeping secrets. So let me quickly explain. I experienced that, or at least that was a thought I had for a pretty long time, that there are people out there super, super smart and you will never be able to outcompete them. But then I realized, for instance, making money, you don't need to be that smart. Give you an example. When I started this coaching business back in 2022, within the first 30 days, I had 5.5K in revenue, in Swiss francs revenue. And I thought, wow, I never done that before. 5.5K is not bad. And all I did was being really consistent and sending like a lot of outreaches, warm outreaches to people, like DM messages basically on Instagram. And that worked pretty well. I had a conversation with them, back and forth, and then I, with the overarching goal, to book a sales call. And just to be consistent, persistent, following up with people, but not in a unfriendly manner, but like really interested. I want to solve your problem way. And if not, if you don't have the problem, we will not work together, obviously. But if yes, I'm your man. And to just do the basics here, it's so powerful. It's like basics could mean within 1 minute or within 5 minutes that somebody reaches out to you, you answer, because then the chance that people will become your customers way higher. That's the basics again. And you don't need to be that smart to do that. That's the cool thing. And that's just a huge relief, I think. At least that was a huge relief for me, that I know I don't need to be the next Elon Musk, although I really think he's a really inspirational person. But I can do the hard work, you know? And also, I told you about not obsessing about the fancy stuff. It's more doing the basics. It's also a powerful one. Not only when it comes to business, but also if you think like health-wise. If you do the basics like sleep on time and sleep enough, if you eat a healthy diet, simply no processed food, and you work out, that's already, you already way better, you know, the basics. And then you can, of course, think about cold plunging, saunas, juggling, whatever you want to do. That's fantastic, but first master the basics. And there is this premise there's this claim outside that a lot of successful people are holding back or keeping secrets. I'm not entirely sure. I think a lot of them are sharing all the secrets, but they are just so obvious and simple, you know? I'm saying simple, not necessarily easy then to do actually, but it's obvious. And then people think like, nah, that can't be the case. It's something different. They are holding back the secrets, but I think it's not like that. At least that's what I learned from Hormozy, the entrepreneur. Next one, a post by Kevin Sabo. Just like a computer, your mind slows down when it has too many tabs open. I love that one because in order to come up with a good decision, you need to remove the clutter in your life. So if you have a lot of clutter, whether it's in your apartment, whether it's on your computer, when there is everything cluttered on your phone, everywhere, it's way harder to make a good decision. At least this is what happened in my life. However, when I cleaned up my room, my phone and my computer, and I have a clean environment, it's way easier for my mind to make a good decision because there are not so many distractions that take me away from the main thing. And I can just think about the main thing. And I think if you have too many tabs open, it's okay to close some of them to focus on the few things that are really important. And in order to come up with a good decision, you can start with physical minimalism. In my case, my wardrobe, the clothes I have, are pretty. I have not a lot of things, you know, it's pretty darn simple. And the same applies to my digital world. If you look at my desktop, it's pretty clean. There's nothing like if I do something, like I delete something, I delete it entirely. There's nothing anymore in the trash. Or my desktop, there's only one single folder, my Google Drive. That's it. And it makes everything easier. It makes everything, you know, less cluttered and you can think more clearly. That's at least what happened in my life. Alrighty. Now comes a really cool post by Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss is the author of the 4-Hour Workweek podcast host of the Tim Ferriss Show, a really smart guy. And by the way, he just recently uploaded a new podcast episode with Nicola Flückiger and another guy about parenting, how to raise your child. For everybody who's getting children, maybe an episode worth listening. I thought it's pretty interesting. Never thought about raising children like they outlined in that episode. But circling back to the Tim Ferriss show, a Tim Ferriss post I want to quickly read to you. It's a longer one. Everything big starts small and focused. 1,000 true fans is step 1. Whether you want a 100K per year business or the next Uber. I've seen this with all of my fastest growing and most successful startups. They start laser focused on 100 to 1,000 people, niching down as necessary with their messaging and targeting. So in brackets, demographically, geographically, etc. To get to a manageable and cost-effectively reachable number. So you may ask yourself, why aim for a mere 100K when I can try to build $1 billion business? 2 reasons. Reason 1, aiming for the latter for the outset often leads to neglecting the high touch 1,000 true fans who act as your most powerful unpaid marketing force for crossing the chasm into the mainstream. If you don't build that initial army, you're likely to fail. Second reason, do you really want to build and manage a big company? For most people, it's not a fun experience. It's an all-consuming taskmaster. There are certainly CEOs who treat the needle and enjoy this roller coaster, but they are outliers. Read Small Giants by Bob Burlingham for some fantastic examples of companies that choose to be the best rather than the biggest. Alright, I love that one because the main message of what I just read is when you start a business, it's just better to focus on 1,000 people or 100 people or 50 people in a particular niche and making sure that the targeting is precisely for them. I did a similar approach with my ADHD coaching business. I didn't help every ADHDer. I focused particularly on adults with ADHD that are high performers, like think of strategy consultants or head of in a startup. And I tried to build up a small army of people that enjoy my content and listen to my podcast. I had another podcast at that time, which was called ADHD Power. And it works pretty well if you're so focused and niching down. It was actually pretty darn impressive. I remember when I started this other podcast, within 3 months, I was in the Billboard charts, or I don't know how you call it, like on rank 55 in Germany in the mental health category, or sometimes even better, I'm not sure. But it was a huge one for me because I thought, okay, it makes sense to niche down, it definitely makes sense. And all you need is really 1,000 people that buy everything from you. Like a good example, I would say, and he has way more obviously than 1,000, is Jordan B. Peterson, the book I'm holding up right here, where he wrote that book. Like, if you have an army of people, no matter what you do, no matter which software you, like in his case, he has like this tool, that writing tool, or a course, like self-authoring program, or his books, they buy everything. And I would consider myself part of that group because it helps a lot. It helped my life. And I'm not putting him on a pedestal or guru status. Not at all. He's just someone you can learn a lot from. That's an important distinction, I would say. But all this to say that focusing on a pretty clear niche is so powerful. Not wanting to help everybody. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive in terms of this podcast because this is pretty general stuff which I do right now, but I made the sacrifice to have this as a reflection tool in my life. My ambition is currently not to create the next big podcast. Then I would start differently. I would again niche down on a particular target group. Maybe I will do that, maybe not. But for now, it works pretty good to have this podcast as a reflection tool where I comment on some stuff I'm interested in. I reflect on stuff I'm doing. And like that, I'm like saturating my hunger for knowledge, So, but if I would aim for becoming the biggest podcast on earth, I would treat that like a pro, way different, you know. And there's, by the way, a great book out there called Getting Pro, I think, or Turning Pro, right? About when you want to do something right, you should treat it like a professional, like an athlete, basically. Like you have a coach, you think about your routines and stuff like that. But long story short, Tim Ferriss was a great post. I enjoyed it. Next one. This is a post by a quote I posted by Richard Baldwin. I think he's an economist. AI won't take your job. It's somebody using AI that will take your job. So I listened to a conversation between in the All In podcast. It's a podcast with some VCs, great one. And there, the guest was Naval Ravikant. And they talked about AI and stuff like that. And then David Sachs, a really successful entrepreneur, I think he's also currently working for the government of the United States. He said something like, or he actually came up with this quote by Richard Baldwin. I thought it's powerful because there are a lot of people out there, they don't really want to work with AI, and that's fine. But I think, especially in knowledge work, if you don't work with AI, like simple ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, then AI won't take your job. It's somebody using AI that will take your job, because there are a lot of people out there, they are claiming like, hey, jobs are going away, we will lose jobs. But we have seen in history when some jobs are not anymore existent, some new jobs are created. So I see it definitely as an opportunity, and I'm working for a pretty long time now, if you can say already long, because it's still a pretty new thing, but really intensively with ChatGPT almost every single day when I have a lot of knowledge work to do. And it makes you more efficient. You know, if something takes you now 2 minutes instead of 2 hours, powerful. And if somebody's not using AI, this person is less productive, obviously. Alrighty. Almost at the end. Next one. I love that. The goal is not to get in shape, it's to stay in shape for the rest of your life. I love that. It's something I posted, but I learned it from Hormozy. So there is this difference between finite games and infinite games. Finite games, they basically have like clear rules, clear participants of this game. Like it's really clear boundaries. However, infinite games, they don't have agreed upon rules. They don't have really like boundaries, let's put it like that. It's an ongoing thing. And a lot of people conflate, I would argue, infinite games with finite games. Because, you know, if you think of working out, the goal might be in the short term to get in shape. Fair enough. But I think the actual goal we should think about is to stay in shape for the rest of our life. Because no one cares if you get in shape for 3 months and then again get fat. You know? However, if you you train, you work out, you get in shape, and you stay in shape, I think that's really a remarkable thing to do. Like, one of my goals I'm pursuing is dying healthy. Sounds funny, but really, when I will die, I don't know when, I want to be in a condition where I can do everything. I can play with my grandchildren, can walk up the stairs. I don't need any external help. I still am a fully functional human being with a clear mind. And I believe we can do, or at least I think that for myself, I think I can do a lot of things that increase the likelihood that I will end up in that state, that I will have until my last day, I have a great life with a lot of physical activity, and my mental health is also really, really good. So, long story short, all this to say is that finite games, fair enough. Okay, if you see working out as a finite game, get in shape for 3 months and then don't stop working out and eat crappy food. But actually, I think that's not what most people want. Most people want to stay then in shape. And if you think long term, to say, okay, it's actually, and I want to change my identity. Like, I want to become a new person. And you can't become a new person and be that person till the rest of your life. I'm not claiming that you will stay the same person, but you can do certain routines all your life, like moving, for instance. Good example is my beloved grandfather who hikes every single week multiple times, at least once or 1 or 2 times or even more, like for a really, really long time. And no, like he told me recently, like there are not that many people out there. He sees almost no elderly people in his age who are doing that, or not that many. And I think obviously, I think part of the reason is it's hard and it sucks, like it's cold outside, I need to go for a hike, but it keeps you healthy. And I think that's worth the price of, it's worth considering it because, fair enough, it's hard, but I think it makes our lives better. And if you do that all our lives, it's beautiful. We're always healthy, and maybe we decrease the likelihood that we will end up in hospital. I'm not claiming that bad things can't happen, not at all. But I think we have some responsibilities, or we have some things we can do to decrease the likelihood to end up in a bad situation. And the last one for today, which is actually 3 quotes by Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast had a conversation with Stephen Bartlett. He's the host of the Diary of a CEO podcast. He had a great conversation, and I jotted down 3 quotes. First one is, something I always tell myself is how you feel right now is why no one else does what you want to do or does what you do. And if you push through this, that's just even more of a reason why no one will ever be who you are. So what does that exactly mean? If you, I had, for instance, the goal last year in my last exam semester during my master's degree to achieve really good grades. And it was pretty darn hard because I worked 12 hours every single day, like Monday to Friday, Saturday a little bit less, Sunday sometimes also, not always, but pretty hard and pretty consistent. 12 hours straight, no breaks, desk lunch, and maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes walking, and PP breaks. That's it. And it was hard, but this is what hard feels like. It should be like that. Otherwise, everybody would do it. And I think on those days where it was like Saturday morning, and I woke up again early, and I went to university, and I learned there and prepared stuff, it was hard, but this is what hard feels like, and this is exactly what no one else wants to do, and because of that, don't achieve what they intend to achieve. And this is hard, and this is okay, because what do we expect? Like, nobody expected it to be easy if we are doing something hard, obviously. And in Mr. Beast's case, obviously, it's on a crazy large scale. It's a remarkable story. He's the largest YouTube channel by far, and he's not stopping, and he's pretty obsessed about that. And it's obviously also hard, but in those hard situations, it's important, what I believe, important to tell yourself, like, this is what hard feels like. That's okay. Just don't stop. And because everybody tells you don't stop, but I think in those moments, it's especially important how to deal with that mentally, that you know, that you have a frame, that you tell yourself, this is exactly the point where most people quit, and where you're starting to tell yourself it's not worth it, or my friend's having a beautiful life and making a lot of money and stuff like that. No, stick to it. And there was another quote by Mr. Beast: if my mental health was a priority, I wouldn't be as successful as I am today. Yeah, I think it's just a great reminder that, if you want to achieve a certain level of success, there are obviously some sacrifices going along with that. They can be barriers. Maybe it's mental health, maybe it's different stuff. But nowadays, everybody speaks about, for instance, mental health. And I think it's an important point to do. But I believe, of what I've seen, to achieve a certain level of success requires sacrifices, because you can't focus on everything. You can feel sometimes pretty miserable and still continue. You can be in a bad mood and still do the work. It's in the end a question of what are you optimizing for? Is mental health important to you? Yeah, then optimize for mental health. Fair enough, do that. But if it's not, if you're optimizing for maximum success, like a Mr. Beast does, I would argue, then that's fine. Then go for that. No judgment in both cases, but people who want to have, like, let's say, a life of a Mr. Beast, I think not a lot of people want his life, but and not a lot of people are willing to give up what he's willing to give up, and then telling people like, I also want that life, but it makes no sense, because you're not willing to give up what he's willing to give up. So therefore, this discussion is obsolete, I would argue. And the last quote from this conversation was, when you're making lots of money, it's admirable, it's respectable. Those are traits we want. But when you're not successful, you're a lunatic when you have all these traits. Why I'm bringing that up, especially I would say in entrepreneurship, when you're starting out, everybody's calling you crazy. And when you then become successful and still doing the crazy stuff, all of a sudden you're respectable, it's acceptable because you have proven it's successful. It makes sense to a certain degree, but I think it's just an interesting frame, like, because we can then start to conflate, or let's put it like that. If people tell you like you're doing the wrong stuff, if you're not that successful, but what you're doing will lead you to success, and if you would listen to those folks, you will stop everything and change stuff. And especially if they are not in entrepreneurship, they can't really understand it, or at least most people. They live a different life. And I think that's a really important learning on my journey. Don't listen to people, listen to people who are closest to your goals. That's a really helpful thing to do. Like, if somebody's already there where you want to be, it's helpful to listen to them. If somebody's living a life you don't want to have, don't take their advice or think critically about their advice. It makes life easier. So, all this to say, Mr. Beast was an impressive conversation, and it makes sense to me that he's where he is. He's a pretty obsessed guy with the YouTube thing, with his chocolate business, all that kind of stuff. Really inspirational. I found it really inspiring, and more power to him, of course. All right, guys. With that said, thank you so much for listening, and talk soon.